Fathers of Reddit. In honor of Father's Day, what was your don't tell your mother about this moment? When my 3-year-old wakes up in the middle of the night, like maybe 3 times a month, instead of putting her back to sleep, okay, her stay up and partake in whatever it is I am doing no matter what. Sometimes she falls asleep in minutes and so many times she stays up for a couple hours. I think it's amazing times. I think it may even be dreamlike for her by the way she speaks and moves. She has painted with me, heard my books read aloud, watched Lord of the Rings and cooked creme BRL registered signee. The rule is, it's my time, so if she's gonna be with me she does what I'm doing just like I do for her all day long. She totally gets it and never makes it about her. My goodness. Thank you everybody for your comments and your awards. What a special day to be recognized as a father. Female co-worker of mine was miserable at work one day. I asked her what was wrong. She told me it was her anniversary, and she knew her husband had forgotten. She had preteen girls at home during summer vacation. I knew her home phone number. Pre-cell phone era. I called her home phone and one kid picked up. Explained to the kid who I was and that she needed to call dad at work and remind him it was mom and dad's anniversary. And don't tell mom or dad I called. The next day she was all smiles. Gosh, she did remember. Brought home flowers and took her to dinner. Mission accomplished. Not a word was ever said about this until 6 years later. When she left the company, she gave me a hug at a farewell luncheon and whispered, "My kids ratted you out. Thank you, you." My dad and I, around 5 years old, were on our way home from a car show when we were getting followed by the cops. My dad struggled to put on his seatbelt quickly in hopes he wouldn't get a ticket. Unfortunately, we got pulled over. This might have been the first time ever that I saw a cop this close up, let alone speak to one. I was a deer in headlights the whole time. Well, with the cop on either side of the car, the officer leaned in and asked my dad why he was swerving. That D told the cops I was tickling him. The cops looked at me straight in the eyes and asked if this was true. I was too scared to say anything and just nodded yes. The officers smiled and said, "Never to do that again while your father is driving." Okay, they left without any further words and my dad gave me the lecture of don't tell your mom. TLDR. Dad and I get pulled over when he tried to get his seatbelt on. Blamed it on me tickling him instead. Not a father but a son. We forgot my passport during vacation and were already at the border station when we noticed. My dad then said that we won't turn back but that he will figure something out. Turns out he smuggled me successfully across 3 border crossings without my passport. Before we arrived at home, he told me not to tell my mom about this. Dad and I used to rent a movie each week for when mum had dinner with friends. Usually things like Star Trek or action films. One day, I was about 11. He came home with Blade. We got about 10 minutes in and he turns to me and said, "Don't tell your mother about this. Let's just say I forgot to get it this week." Of course I agree. Fast forward 7ish years. Dad blithely drops at the dinner table the fact that we watched Blade when I was about 11. Silly dad thought there was some kind of statute of limitations on this. I have always worked in restaurants and get home late nights. On Fridays I treat myself to takeout. Not just any takeout. The bad stuff. Cheese fries topped with gyro meat. Steak nachos with guac. Always a large. Always with a big bottle of beer they sell singly. When my girls were little they would sneak down late at night and we would munch bad food and watch really bad funny movies with all the swear words in. One night I was enjoying a small bit of ice cream after my 4-year-old daughter went to bed. She came downstairs and caught me, so I offered her a small bite. But since she was supposed to be in bed, I said don't tell mom. She assured me she wouldn't. My wife wouldn't have cared anyway, but it was a fun little game to play. After she went up to bed and I was down on the couch, she snuck into the master bedroom where mom was resting. She told mom that I had let her have some ice cream, and she was afraid of sugar bugs, so could she please brush her teeth again. My wife just laughed at me the next day. Little it ratted me out to brush her teeth. Something she doesn't like doing anyway. When my wife's at work, I will take my daughter, 4-year-old, out for breakfast. Then we will go on a small adventure around a shop of her choice and pretend whatever she wants. Last time we went to a car parts shop and rolled tires around as we were freeing the rollings from Monster. So far my wife doesn't believe her when she later on grosses me up. TBH, it's the only thing pre-COVID I miss doing. Dad was putting new roof shingles on. I was probably 3, maybe 4. I asked if I could help. He said if I could climb the ladder, sure. I was always climbing, so that was no issue. Climbed right on up and started handing him shingles. It would have been a don't tell your mother moment had she not come home from grocery shopping. After several back and forth of where are you and up here mom, she figured it out and flipped out. What is he doing on the roof? Edit. I'm not a dad, so I posted on behalf of my dad. Daughter speaking for her father. In high school, everybody was always busy at work or clubs. So I was the first one in my household to get home nearly every single day. Dad was having money troubles that he didn't want to disclose to anyone. So he paid me $5 a month to take the bank statement letter from the mailbox and hide it from my stepmom until he got home. It was the closest thing I got to an allowance. P.S. I had no idea what the money trouble was. BTW. I was always the don't ask, don't tell person. So that's why he trusted me the most about this. When my son was 6, I was playing Grand Theft Auto late at night. He wakes up and comes to the living room, tells me he can't sleep, and asks can he watch me play. I say he can, but not to tell his mom. He agrees with a big smile. Maybe after about an hour he is playing and I'm watching and helping him. He can't stop laughing, driving into people and running from the cops. I was telling him to watch out for the 5-0 and he asks me what that means. So I tell him it's the cops. He just shrugs and keeps playing. Now fast forward about a week later and we are all driving in the car. All I hear is a scream of dad, watch out, it's the 5-0. And I absolutely start crying from laughing so hard, all while his mother is questioning where he learned that. He just says YouTube. She found out later that I'll let him play GTA. But I hope the memory of that is as special to him as it is to me. When I was in middle school, I was the only one willing to go shopping groceries with my dad. He didn't want to go alone and my mom was at school studying her masters. None of my siblings wanted to go with him. We used to go to Carl's Jr., have a big breakfast, and then we went grocery shopping. Nobody knew, not even my mom, until years later. He would also let me buy any cereal I wanted. That's actually how I learned how to buy good fruit and veggies, how to order meat and fish, etc. When my siblings found out, they were angry. BC they would have gone if a big breakfast was on the menu. My mom just laughed. Nowadays they sneak to have breakfast together before going grocery shopping since we're all grown up. Edit. Thank you so much for the award. Not a father, but I was with my dad and we thought it was a good idea to start a small fire on the porch. The wooden porch. It was made of mostly paper and we made sure to scatter the embers and everything, but after we went inside and to bed, the wind must have kicked up because we came outside the next day and there was a giant hole burned into the porch. My dad just told me, hey, don't tell your mom, I'll get it fixed. He then proceeded to cover it with a small table. She found out anyway and we're pretty lucky that the house didn't burn down. Not a real don't tell your mother about this moment, but when I was little, my dad had a workshop in the garage where he'd do woodwork. I'd come out and talk to him while he worked, and he'd let me sit on the car that was parked in the garage. He framed it as something that was so bad and edgy and we couldn't tell my mom, and I was 5, so I believed it and felt so cool without actually doing anything wrong or dangerous. This last Christmas my 4-year-old helped my wife wrap one of my gifts. It was late so I was working. The next day, while my wife was at work, she came running through from her bedroom first thing and yelled excitedly, "Daddy, Daddy, I helped wrap your gift. It's a surprise, it's a slushie maker." Honey, that's awesome, but you aren't supposed to tell me that. I know, but it's a slushie maker. If you know not to tell me, then why did you tell me? Because I'm just so excited to make slushies with you. I was crying with laughter at this point and told her that it's an awesome gift but to keep gifts secret. And I told her we wouldn't tell mummy so she wouldn't be disappointed that I knew what it was. I ended up telling her that evening because it was just too funny and cute. My dad, brother, and I went out to these dunes near where I live with bottle rockets. We each had an empty milk jug and each took like 20 bottle rockets for ammo. Then, we ran around launching bottle rockets at each other. I was the youngest, which made me the hardest to hit. so I won the rocket gnaw. But yeah, mom never found out. Not a father but a story about mine. One day I decided to pull a sick day at school and came downstairs and saw that my dad was making a coffee. I asked him what he was doing and why he wasn't at work, and he said I could ask you the same question. We stood in silence for a moment and he said, I won't tell your mum if you won't. We had a good laugh about it and he let me have the day off. When I was younger, my dad and I would always go to the movies together. It was our thing. I always looked forward to it. Also, when I was about 11, we would often watch Family Guy or South Park together. Certainly not age appropriate, but nothing too terrible I don't think. However, one day he took me to see Team America, World Police when it came out, made by the guys who did South Park. I think he realized his mistake during the Puppet sex scene, and immediately after said, don't tell your mom about this. R.I.P. Dad. Love and miss you. One for my dad. My dad took me to my first MLB game. God, I miss baseball, and told me not to tell my mom. Later found out it was because the game was a good bit outside of the travel radius set in the custody agreement. They were arguing a lot more than usual at the time, so he knew mom would say no if he asked about it, but really wanted to take me to a game. Told me not to say anything so she couldn't use it against him while trying to take him to family court again. Luckily I didn't say anything and we got to keep sneaking away to games until the travel radius stopped being a thing. Dad still has the tickets too. I took both kids out at around 13 to show them how to drive. Just in big empty parking lots or in the neighborhood, but they loved it and I enjoyed a little secret with them for a while. Dad scratched the car after an idiot turned and rammed into us. He told me to just keep it a secret and he slid me a few singles to keep my mouth shut. But she found out anyway, lol. My dad used to hoist my siblings and I to the ceiling in a garbage can with a come along and swing us back and forth. Fun as hell. But don't tell your mother. My dad and I were emptying the car of a half side of beef to the freezer when I noticed that he was having some issues holding the packages and there was a thick bandage peeking out of the cuff of his shirt with some blood on it. I asked him what was wrong with his wrist, to which he replied, a glass shield on an electric meter shattered at work and slit my wrist. I had to get stitches. Don't tell your mother. Dad hurt himself. I said don't tell your mother. My dad cooked us all dinner as a surprise. He was a wizard in the kitchen, and my mom had no idea since everyone shushed. So, she also cooked a 3-course meal in honor of my dad's and my huge appetite. All I can say is that I've never eaten more in my life. The embodiment of gluttony. My parents helped me out with rent during college. They'd send me a check every month for $800, which was honestly really nice of them. My mom usually does it, but for whatever reason my dad did it once and spelled my name wrong on the check. Like Alicia instead of Alyssa, so it wasn't just a spelling error but also changed the sound of my name a bit. I didn't notice until I was at the bank in line at the teller already and I called my parents. My dad literally said the words don't tell your mother about this and didn't realize my mom was on the other line. To this day he says he was just distracted and in a rush. College was over a decade ago but my mom still plays the at least I didn't forget what our daughter's name was trump card now and then. While building the outdoor playset for my 5-year-old, I drilled a screw completely through a board and into my shoe, barely stopping just as the screw broke skin. I swore right in front of him. Something along the lines of mother ducking duck mother ducker. We are sworn to secrecy to this day. My dad has passed away so I'll tell this on his behalf. My sister was maybe 10 or 11. My dad was very worried and had been waiting all day for us to come home from school. When we got home he pulled her aside saying he needed to have a serious talk with her. He said to her, I was looking for a pencil and found this in your desk, and pulled out a plastic baggie filled with some dried plant material. He said, oh, catnip? He thought it was pot. We would make little cat toys with catnip and the bag had ripped, so she put it in a Ziploc bag. He sighed a huge sigh of relief and laughed and told her he thought she was doing drugs and asked her not to tell our mom. He was so embarrassed. My dad taught me how to play throw rocks, where you toss a handful of rocks in the air directly above you and run away before they hit you. I was playing it one day with my cousin and got clunked on the head by a big one and bled all over my face and shirt collar. I went crying to dad and he paid me $1 and a piece of gum to keep quiet about the throw rocks game and just tell mom my cousin threw it at me. My relationship with my cousin has been irreversibly damaged since then because I lied on him and he never wanted to talk to me again, so we drifted apart. Edit. Spelling. When we were kids, my dad took me and my sister out on a bike ride. My sister had her own bike while I was sat in the kiddie seat on his. At some point we come to a stop, and I guess my sister was still a little unsteady on her bike because she started wobbling a bit. To help, my dad leaned over to steady her, so much so that I flipped right out of the seat. In true 90s fashion, there was only the single buckle to keep me in, and landed right onto asphalt. I was fine except for the deep scrapes right across my face and abdomen. It was completely an accident, but my dad panicked and told both of us, "Oh god, don't tell mom," and ushered us home to patch me up. He caught some hell from mom because he couldn't hide a face injury, especially when it started scabbing over into an ugly mess, but he impressively managed to conceal the rest by volunteering to be the one to bathe me and put me to bed every night. It got found out anyway a couple weeks later when we were playing with an inflatable pool and a family friend was like, "Goodness, what is all that?" This was my dad, and not a funny story, but made me realize my dad did love me. My stepmom had started to charge me rent when I turned 18. I accepted as it meant I didn't have to do as much chores and can for the most part be left alone. It was about $200 a month. At the time I was making $9 each, which was slightly above minimum wage for my state. I was miserable at the time, so I saved up to get a refurbished Xbox One to play games, and I asked my dad if I could just use the small TV in the guest bedroom in my room. This was a TV no one used. He said he will think about, which meant he had to ask the overlord. A couple days later he said that I can, but she wanted to add $25 a month to my rent to use it. Broke down. I told him that I was saving up to try and leave and she is the reason my sister left. He then said, "It's okay. You are paying rent." He didn't make me pay the extra $25, and it turned out that he saved the money I paid for rent and gave it to me for my deposit on my first apartment. It was a "we won't tell your stepmother about this" and made our relationship a little bit better. It's not a grand or funny story, but I resented him up until that moment, and he started to defend me more in arguments against her after my sister left. Also, they are now divorced, so small win. Saying this in honor of my dad, as he is very old and does not Reddit. He once cut the end of my toe off as a baby, cutting my sharp baby nails, and my screaming brought in my brother. He joined forces to get me all bandaged up and told my mother I'd banged it into a wall or trapped it in a door or something. My mum found out, and by extension so did I, when I was 10. A wholesome one. For my mum's 50th birthday he bought her a set of vintage diamond and pearl earrings and a necklace. I helped him choose them out. I'm never allowed to tell her just how much they cost. Every ice cream cone after a trip to the park. I'm not a dad, but this is about my father. It was freshman year and I was 13. That day I ran a mile for rock warm up. Went to dance class. Had wrestling practice after school, which always includes weightlifting and running a mile for both warm up and cool down. Then worked 4 hours construction. Just got home. Thought I was alone. Went outside and sparked the joint I was looking forward to all day. My dad steps outside. Sits right next to me. Hands me a beer and asks about my day. He never said anything about the smoke. The end of that conversation ended with "Don't tell your mother about this." Granddaughter speaking on grandfather's behalf. When my mom was young, her mother would always bake a bunch of sugar cookies and store them in the pantry until Christmas. After she baked them, my mom and her dad would sneak into the pantry one at a time and eat the cookies. After about 2 months, they had finished the whole batch. My grandmother went to fetch the cookies on Christmas only to find crumbs left. She was pissed. Lol. Miss you. Operoon copyright airing. My mom. I have never been with any man other than your father, nor has he been with any woman other than me. My dad. Oh yeah, when I was first seeing your mom I had like 4 other girls I was talking to on the side. Don't tell her though. One day very long ago when I was young, maybe 12 years old, we were playing in the neighborhood and some dogs were big Rottweilers roaming free, and one of them started chasing us. Managed to get to me and pull me on the ground. I was super scared. At this time the owner came and got his dogs off me. I am scared shitless, white as a blanket, going home crying. My father asked what happened, and when heard the whole story and we went to that spot, he explained to the owner not so politely that next time his gigantic dogs are seen not on a leash, will be shot on the spot. Maybe 30 years have passed since, and when I go home to visit the family, sometimes I see this dog owner, again with the same dog breed, 2 dogs with him always, but always on a leash. Welp, I'm a dad, but I think my best story would be from my father. He wanted to take us outside of the Scottsdale, AZ city limits to see Halley's Comet. It was a huge deal when it came through in the 80s. We drove about 45 minutes north of town into deep desert. We spent some time viewing it. It was rather disappointing, and we heard dogs barking in the distance when we first got there, but they seemed closer, then closer. It was pitch black. I think we had a flashlight, but that was it. We started heading back to the car. The flashlight was shined at a fence in the distance and about 5 terrifying looking dogs started right at us. We literally got the doors to the car shut as drooling, snarling. Dogs started jumping up to the windows and getting in the bed of the truck. We peeled out. And don't tell mom about the dogs, okay? Your mom's brother was almost killed and eaten by dogs when he was little. Story about my father. When I was about 6 or 7 we were really hard up for money at the time. So we cut down on all expenses, saving change. My mom would go out of town for work every other weekend. My dad would save up a few dollars over the weeks, take me to Waffle House for breakfast, go on a walk on the beach, then take me home and let me play the I Spy computer game on his work computer. He would always teasingly tell me not to tell mom about Waffle House. I don't think she would have been mad, but it was fun to have something just the 2 of us would do together. I love my dad and copyright airing. Not the father, the daughter. Parents always had money problems. Dad saw an amazing investment opportunity, he claimed, and said he was going to buy it without consultation. Told me not to tell. He kept it for 3 years, worked on it and flipped it for a double of what he bought it for. So it worked out, but during those 3 years, he had me fudge the numbers every time mom asked, because he was paying the repayments on it with me tagging along all the time. Mom also hated his sisters, so every time we went out to my aunt's places, he would make me lie to her if she asked. It got so normal that by the time I was in my teens, he didn't even need to. I'd automatically make up a plausible excuse. Oh, amazing thing dad did, but told me to hide it from mom. One cousin was orphaned early on. The dad died. The mom got sick and subsequently died 2 years on. Bright kid. Absolutely no resources except for scrapes from extended family. Her mom was on super bad terms with my mom when she died, so can't mention my cousin in the house. Also because tons of existing money problems. Dad got cousin a computer. Took her shopping for clothes. We'd take her out for ice cream or treats once a month or so, and every week we'd participate in a roster to pick her or send her to tuition and extracurricular activity. I'm convinced mom still doesn't know. My stepson is 6 and hit his pants yesterday. I was knocking on the bathroom door because I had to use it. He yells out, "Don't come," and I had an accident. Go away. I asked him, what accident? He said, go to your room, I had an accident. So I asked him if he needed help cleaning it up. He said okay come, and then I opened the door and there he is, underwear on the floor and a paper towel in his hand filled with poop. It took a lot for me to not laugh in his face. I was proud of him for doing a pretty good job of cleaning the mess. I rinsed his britches, we got him changed, and he told me to get the laundry done, so we knocked that out before mommy got back from the store, and she is none the wiser. We look like we did chores instead of playing all day. I'm a mother, but sometimes when I come home, my kids smell suspiciously like grape soda. Neither the kids nor my husband ever have any idea why that is. My dad let me drive his car at 10 years old. It was a few feet, but I almost destroyed the garage before hitting the parking brake to stop it. One time my dad took me and my brother to a neighbor's house to use her basketball hoop. They were colleagues as well, so they knew each other, but we didn't know her. We got there. He found us the ball, and he went inside to catch up with her. The ball was basically flat. My brother and I had no idea why we were there in an unkempt, crappy driveway, and not at the park with our own, not flat, basketball. So we stood there like, well, okay, he'll come back out soon. and then he didn't. So I go knock on the door of this stranger's house and hear nothing. I wait. I finally let myself in and have to creep around this person's house trying to locate my dad. And then I found my dad in her bedroom. And he was like, "This is not what it looks like, don't tell your mom." And then my soon to be stepmom gave me and my brother $20 each. My dad sat me down with my mom and explained that I had a vivid imagination and pretty much gaslit me into saying I didn't see what I saw. And then he accidentally recorded himself on the answering machine, talking to this woman about their affair. And we have celebrated Single Mother's Day ever since. Does that count?